probably some of the plays were the same, from the Dean Smith School of Basketball. So they hired him. I think a couple of guys backed off on the job when they found out about the
Gary Williams
Gary Williams being one, the impending probation. But that was the only year in my tenure they didn't go to the NCAA tournament. But it was still a fun year. And then the next year, they had a great team again, and Roy had an unbelievable run. He left. He stayed here once and then left. But, Roy was so approachable and so eager. And he obviously became one of the biggest coaches in the country. But he was just old Leroy from Asheville, North Carolina then. But he was fun. And my son's father-in-law here in Lawrence is one of Roy's best friends to this day, Randy Towner, who's a golf pro. And but it was a great experience. And Roy brought in some really good players over the years.
Yes, he did. And there were some people who thought that Roy changed, that the aw shucks thing wasn't, as time went on, not really that realistic. How did you find, what was your relationship like with Roy? And I always got along with Roy fine.
Yeah.
Some other people, in the media really maybe necessarily didn't. They thought he had changed a bit.
Yeah.
You probably would, naturally, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was never what you would say in Roy's close circle, which is fine. I don't need to be with the coach. Right. I need to get along with him, and we did. But he was very interesting, and he had his theory about how to do things, and a lot of it was from Dean Smith, obviously. So how can you fault that? But yeah, he did change. He came from being a kind of a obscure assistant coach at Chapel Hill and emerged as one of the top. He's a Hall of Fame coach now.
Right.
He's won 3 national championships. I think one of his big regrets is he didn't win one at Kansas with some of the guys he had, like Nick and Kirk and Rafe and Paul Pierce and that group. But he grew. I guess we all do as we go, but he stepped into that job, and by golly, he did it.
During this, we've talked all about basketball. Kansas does play football.
Yep.
They haven't often played it well during the time that you broadcast, but there were moments as well during occasional times. For you, what was the transition like? Maybe in years where the football team you knew probably wasn't going to be very good, and there was so much excitement in basketball, but you brought that to the football field too. But it must be a little bit of a juxtaposition at times.
Yeah, and I think you can be good in both. But as you say, KU's been so inconsistent over the years, changing coaches. When they've had a good team, they had a real good quarterback, so you can kind of trace it that way. And the Reesing teams were just fabulous. I'm friends with Mark Mangino to this day. He came to a game last year, and he asked me to sit with him in the suite. It was when they were putting Reesing's number up on the wall. We had a great visit and talked about the good old. He could be tough to be with. I mean, he was a tough guy, but he had a tough job to do, and he got it done. And he gave me some good advice. When he got let go, he said I was really bitter, and we've all been through those deals. And he said, I decided that bitterness is too hard to carry around, so I dropped it. And I said, thanks. I kind of needed that. But that was great. Masons had 2 great teams. We went to the Aloha Bowl in Hawaii and beat a good Brigham Young team, and then beat a UCLA team that had about 8 NFL players on it. So we had moments, just not enough of them. But, football is so great, and I'm sure hopeful that Les Miles can find a way to get KU football back where we think it ought to be.
Bob Davis is our guest. It's just an absolute pleasure to sit down with him here, and we'll have more with he's had a day named after him. He's a Hall of Famer, 14-time Kansas Broadcaster of the Year. That's ridiculous. But anyway, we'll visit more with Bob right after this.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Looking for a truly unique escape from your normal entertainment or corporate team-building regimen? Stay tuned for an exclusive offer only for Reasonably Irreverent listeners. I'm excited to tell you about an extraordinary destination, the Exit Room, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Lee Summit. The Exit Room is a distinctive entertainment option that offers a cool alternative to the normal couples night out, family get-togethers, and corporate team-building events. The Exit Room is a one-of-a-kind boutique escape room catering to special occasions and corporate team-building events and is unmatched in the Kansas City metro. With 5 individually designed and varied escape room adventures, your party or employees can unplug from their electronic world, interact with one another, match wits, and ultimately escape the humdrum of the ordinary. The Exit Room adventures cross decades and centuries and create fascinating fun. I know the owners well. They are local folks, their staff is warm and friendly, their lobby is inviting and beautiful, and their adventures are award-winning. Check online. There are over 1,000 reviews and note that they are a rare 5-star ranked business. Visit their website and Facebook page, and any of my listeners who books online at theexitroomkc.com using the promo code ClinkScale19 gets 10% off any ticket purchase. The Exit Room in Lee Summit. Unplug, interact, and escape.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
Before you spend your time and money going after an MBA, ask yourself why. Is it so you can tell people you got your MBA? So you can add a line to your CV? So you can call it a CV instead of a resume? Truth is, any MBA will do that. On the other hand, if your goal is to learn how to successfully manage and grow a business with real-world insights from experienced professionals, well, consider getting your MBA from Park University. Our low student-to-teacher ratio gives you personalized attention, and our face-to-face and online classes offered in 8-week terms are designed with working professionals like you in mind. No wonder the Kansas City Business Journal ranks Park University as the top MBA program in the area. Classes begin June 10th at all 4 KC area locations: Parkville, Downtown, Independence, and Lenexa. Visit park.edu to get started.
Sumner One is the company to make your office maximize efficiency. Their family of companies make up one of the largest independent dealers of office technology in the Midwest. They are proud to bring the best service and technology to top companies across the region. Sumner One can help your organization run more smoothly than ever. Sumner One printers, copiers, MFPs, managed print services, document management, infrastructure design, IT services, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Welcome to the one place where everything works. For more information, call Carl Little at 913-752-2256. Here with Bob Davis, here on our Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing each and every Friday, and a thrill to talk with him. And we do focus a little bit on basketball during the Kansas tenure. Naturally, Roy stays, then eventually he does leave, and then Kansas is at a point where they've been so good for so long, they really kind of don't, job search. They just pick a coach, and that's kind of what they did with Bill Self.
Well, and we had all knew Bill. He'd been a graduate assistant on Larry's staff. We all liked him. We saw him play at Oklahoma State, and I was talking to, I think it was Richard Consom at the time, about possibilities, and I said, you got to call Bill Self, see if he'd be interested. He'd only been at Illinois for like 3 years, but he was getting it rolling there.
Right.
I would think,
KU had played them in the tournament.
Right, and got beat, and then beat him the next year. And I thought, find out if he'd be interested. Well, he was, because he knew it and had been here. And gosh, he just had a fabulous run. I'm not sure people realize, they'll dwell on some of those first-round upsets, which is human nature. But Bill's just been a perfect guy in this time. His personality is so good, and, he's very competitive, but it's all cliche, but he's really comfortable in his own skin,
yes, he
so
is.
to speak. And he's a guy.
Yeah, there was a story. I was at the CBE a few years ago, and this is just the kind of thing that you can't really teach or know. There was a man there, and it was a meet and greet type of thing, and there was a man there who had played for Oral Roberts back when he played for Oklahoma State.
Uh-huh.
And so, it's just 1,000 years ago.
Right.
And so the guy walks up and he starts to introduce himself to
Bill knew him.
Bill, and Bill said, "Hey, you're so-and-so, number 15 or whatever." And the guy just lit up
That's
like
Bill
a Christmas
Self.
tree. And I mean, that was just like that's what he's like.
He remembers people, and remembers names, and he still kids Greg Gurley to this day. When they recruited Gurley to go to Oklahoma State, he said, "What I really remember about recruiting you is your mother made the best cookies."
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the type of things that you remember. But with each transition, what is the time? You know, you only had 2 transitions in basketball, but what is it like to create a comfort level with a new person? And does it take some time? Or, I mean, you're obviously a very genial person, so that makes it a lot easier. But what would you say that your attitude towards trying to create a new relationship is?
Well, I didn't make a big deal out of it, but I knew what my job was, and I wanted Kansas to do well. Obviously, it helps the broadcast, but I didn't want to be Larry's best friend or Roy's best friend or Bill's, although I'd like to think I'm friends of all of them. But I didn't need that. They let me do my thing, and we just had fun with it. Of course, we won a lot, which certainly helps. But there are also along the way some stinging losses. I'll never forget 1997 to Arizona and that team, But that's part of it. It happens it's why it's March Madness, I guess. But, it was a great experience. My son was a basketball manager.
Right.
At one time, Stephen thought he was going to be a basketball coach. And he was 2 years with Roy and 2 with Bill. And I said, this is going to be great. You're going to work with 2 guys who are great coaches who will do things similarly and differently. And you can see how it all works.
Right.
And it was a great experience for him. And both of them were good to work for. But, they're different guys, too. Roy has 2 passions, really, basketball and golf, And there are no bones about that. But it was fun working with all of them.
No question about that. When you now about a few years obviously before this, you get the opportunity to do the Royals. How did that come about?
Well, Paul Splittorff and I had done the pre and post game shows on KMBZ, and Paul and I got to be friends. Interestingly enough, here's this former major league. When I was in Hayes, he came on a caravan to Hayes, and I interviewed him out there and on television. We talked about that a lot. But we got to be friends and friends with our wives and family. And when he was, I forget how it happened with TV, but he worked with Denny Treese on Channel 4, and Denny left, and there was going to be an opening. And he said, you ought to go for that play-by-play job. And I said, well, I don't have a lot of TV experience, but I'd love to do it. And it worked out that I got to do it. In the first few years, we did like 40 games, which was a great way to break in. And we had so much fun. And he knew everybody in baseball. I'm going with a guy that knows everybody. And he included me. He introduced me to, all the other baseball guys, so to speak, players, friends of his. And it was just a great situation. And the friendship was part of it, but we really enjoyed it. And he will tell you, you can't now, but he would have, that I taught him a lot about broadcasting. How that all works and comes together. And he wasn't just some old jock doing color. He wanted to be a broadcaster and do it right. And so that was a great thing, too.
He one thing that probably makes it a little more of an easy transition in baseball is the fact that baseball television play-by-play is fairly similar to radio play-by-play. You're not going to describe every little thing, but a lot of it is similar.
You bet. And I tried to remember that my thinking was the analyst is the star here on television. I got to bring Split in because he had a lot of knowledge. He was articulate, and that helped us too because I was always conscious of him being the guy. I mean, I'm a guy here. I'm telling you the count's 2-1. That was before we put it on the screen all the time. But he really liked that and wanted to do well, and that helped a lot.
You'd be transitioning, however, from a team that was always winning.
Oh, yeah.
and you broadcast literally thousands of losses.
Oh.
The team was no good the entire time you were there. But I think that, when you're maybe at the very beginning, they're okay. But, they a couple glimmers. But I think you approach it, people always ask me that, too, when I would be broadcasting for a team that wasn't any good. Each individual game is
you never
the
know
game.
Who's going to win in baseball.
And the game is a game unto itself, and that's really – so that kind of takes away the sting.
Of that every September. Here we are in Chicago. There's 8,000 people. We don't know who's going to win tonight. This might be a heck of a game. That's the way baseball is, and that made it fun. Every game was fresh to me. I loved baseball, even though it was some will tell you a daily grind, and if you let it be, it will. In my time of 16 years, I think I had 4 100-loss seasons with the Royals. We had a 19-game losing streak, So there was some, some different managers to deal with. But it was. I wanted to do baseball from day one.
Right.
And I always thought that was the great broadcasting or sportscasting job. Baseball was the one that started it.
Right.
Play by play.
When you and obviously you eventually things happen and you don't end up doing the Royals.
Right.
So when they were going through the couple of seasons where they were great,
right?
How much of that was a little melancholy for you to have done all those